Welcome to Stop the Fight. And today we are recapping this past weekend's action. Let's go!
Don't brag about taking my side piece! Don't brag about taking my side piece, though!
I broke my back. Back is broken. Spinal.
He's strong, man. Good boy. Just.
All right, the Kid Galahad versus James Dickens fight. Galahad gets the late round stoppage like we predicted. Dickens put up a valiant effort but was clearly outmatched in every facet of the game. Galahad had a little bit more power. Galahad had a little bit more speed. Galahad had the better footwork, and Galahad was a little bit bigger. He wasn't particularly better overall in any one area. You couldn't say, oh, he's except for punching power. You couldn't say he was a much better counterpuncher, a much quicker fighter, a much bigger fighter. But being a little bit better in all those aspects made for a slightly lopsided fight. You just saw that Dickens couldn't do anything. He landed some of the shots, no doubt. And especially early on, he was in the fight. But as the fight progressed and the cut, Dickens, there was a cut that opened up over his over the left eye. It kept getting worse and worse and worse. And like I said, I didn't bet on this fight. It wasn't an interesting bet for me. There just wasn't anywhere to go here. I didn't like Dickens at all. And while I thought, like I said in the pre-fight, that Galahad could get the stoppage, given that he himself is not quite a power puncher, it wasn't in it for me to risk any of the plays. So again, if you did take him by late stoppage, congratulations. That was, hope you made a little bit of bread. Again, we are the everyman's betting boxing channel, so I'm happy anytime somebody wins a little bit of cash. So let's talk a little bit about Galahad, though. What do we see now that he is technically a champ, right? Yeah, I mean, this is the featherweight division. So what can we tell about Galahad? Well, one of the things right away we saw a mistake with Galahad, and it's a pretty glaring one. He cannot be switching to southpaw ever. He shouldn't be doing that. As a matter of fact, if you watch every time he switches to southpaw and throws that right jab, his right hand goes right down to his waist. It is a really quite a big error. A seasoned fighter will time him all the time and will land a straight right over that southpaw jab. He's going to walk into trouble. His trainers need to pull that out of him, because I seen him do it a couple times in the fight, and early on, I was mentioning to my wife, then I'm like, no. This is a significant issue that Galahad has, and he cannot be switching to southpaw whatsoever. Not going to work for him against a more seasoned fighter. You have Navarrete at this weight class. You have, obviously, Santa Cruz if he comes back down, which I think he will. You still have a Warrington rematch, right? Because Galahad does have one loss, and it is against Warrington. Warrington is basically a little bit, in some ways, like Dickens, just significantly better. Both Warrington and Dickens don't have much punching power, but Warrington is a pretty significantly higher caliber boxer. He's faster. He's also a little bit bigger. So I think a rematch is where you have to go. Like I said, I don't like him against Navarrete, against Leo Santa Cruz. It depends what goes on. And obviously, Leigh Wood just had the upset. So all these fights are good fights. I think all winnable for Galahad, except I don't think the Navarrete fight is winnable. But every other fight for him is absolutely winnable as it currently stands. Obviously, you have Isaac Dogboe, who was one of my favorite fighters, actually. I really enjoy him. I've seen him fight numerous times. And he's just, my only problem with Isaac is that he gets into too many wars. That's now, I think, the past 3 or 4 fights I've seen him really, really, really take some damage. And at 26, you got to be careful. But I do like him a lot. He's just, I can't tell you why. And sometimes you just like a fighter. Well, Isaac Dogboe is one of those fighters that I just like. Okay, let's move on. Congratulations to Galahad. We'll see some fights. Maybe, like I said, rematch with Warrington. So, what else did we have? Well, we had one of the bigger, I would say, robberies I've seen in the past few years. A fight that I thought was so wide and so not close, I kind of just stopped paying attention and thought in my head, this is kind of set and done, and this is going nowhere. It just keeps going the way it's going, and blah, blah, blah. I literally almost stopped paying attention. I was half watching the fight. I was like on my phone. Gabriel Maestre wound up getting the unanimous decision against Mikhail Fox in a fight, I kid you not, I thought Fox won like 9, 10 rounds in with a knockdown. It was so wide that even scores of like 116 and 117 would have been, I think, too close for my liking. I honestly don't think, what's his name? Gabriel won any rounds that I can say definitively he won. I mean, obviously I wasn't watching so attentively, but wow. This was it wasn't a good fight, and I don't suggest you watch it, but if you want to see what a real robbery looks like, I know everyone always says robbery, and even I feel some fights were incorrect decisions. This right here this feels like a robbery. This seems like there were WBA officials that were either incompetent to levels that almost don't even make sense, or were blatantly paid off and corrupt. I mean, again, I don't want to make any accusations here, but this is severe incompetence by the judges. Severe. I mean, a child could see that. I don't know how many shots Maestre even landed in the fight. I don't even have the copy. I mean, it was ridiculous. The fight was more or less over by like the middle of the fight. By the 6th, 7th round, I think Fox had won like 6 or 7 of those rounds with a knockdown. I just thought the fight was just done. I really can't believe this. I know that the WBA said that they're gonna look into it and they may order an immediate rematch potentially, but come on, this is it. A rematch is not necessarily gonna rectify this. This means that Fox has to waste more time. Like, this is ridiculous. You know, fighters who are growing their career, who are moving on, who are trying to expand, they don't want to waste another. Like, Fox beat him. Like, I'm telling you guys, if you watch the fight, he won like 10 rounds with a knockdown. This should be no rematch. No offense to Gabriel, but he didn't quite look like he was necessarily in the same caliber of fighter or the same league as Fox was. Not to say Fox looked all that amazing. Gabriel just didn't look like he belonged in the same ring with him. This is something, but this is actually interesting. I want to say, this was Gabriel's 4th fight. His 3rd knockout in 4 fights. He's an older guy. He's 34. And in a way, even though this is a robbery, I'm hoping that the 35, 34-year-old from Venezuela gets paid. I mean, look, everyone's in boxing. Well, not everyone, but many people are in boxing strictly for the money. And you got to imagine that a guy who's 34 and has his 4th professional fight is absolutely in it for the money. He must know deep down inside that he's not a real world champ. He's not going to be a legendary fighter. No, he doesn't look like one, but this gets him paid for sure. A little bit more money now that he won. Does he beat Fox a second time? I don't think so. I don't know what he can do. Fox is tall too. Like, he was towering over him. He was a tall, what do you want to call him? Welterweight, 6'3.5". And as a matter of fact, what's his name? Gabriel's not small himself at 5'10.5". So these are kind of big welterweights fighting. Here's what's interesting is Gabriel in his first fight wound up beating the 20-0 Giovannis Barraza. And at the time, Barraza, I mean, obviously he's fought nobody, but he had a bunch of KOs. So, and if you look at the opponent's records that Gabriel Maestre has fought over his 4 fights, and you're gonna see something like them being 100. It's like about 100 victories to 11 defeats. I don't want to badmouth some of the prospects, but if you look at win-loss record of his previous opponents, this is one of the better runs, you would say, of some of these guys who are supposed to be, not up-and-comers that we're supposed to respect and look out for. Gabriel here has actually fought a relatively decent level of opposition and has kind of won them all. Obviously these guys had padded records, but nonetheless. Like I said, I think this was a robbery. If you guys want to see what a robbery looks like, watch this fight. The fight wasn't exciting. It wasn't particularly interesting. None of these fighters were doing anything that you're going to remember, except for the fact that the wrong guy won the decision. Absolutely. And now let's talk about the Staniosis Collazo fight. This was the last fight for Collazo, and I think he kind of went out well. I never did like a goodbye episode, even though last time I mentioned that Collazo, he's a little bit underrated, and this wound up being because this was a cut caused by a headbutt, and the fight ended in 4 rounds. This wasn't a loss. I think Collazo would have lost to Staniosis had it gone. Probably would have gotten stopped. But let's talk about Collazo for a second. We'll talk about the fight. You know what? Let's talk about the fight. So Staniosis was marching forward, but Collazo was giving him more than enough, I felt. And I think it exposes a little bit of what the issues are with Staniosis. And as I said in the pre-fight, Staniosis looks like a tank, and he looks very strong, and he is strong. But he doesn't have that, like, one-shot punching power. He really doesn't. He's a strong hitter, and he landed numerous punches on Collazo. But they seem like they maybe shook him a little bit, but I did not see the kind of power from Staniosis that would tell me that he's like this unstoppable, tanky kind of guy. Another thing is, you noticed, even at 40 years old, dare I say, Collazo had the faster feet when compared to Staniosis. Staniosis looked very stationary. He does this thing where he kind of leans forward with a high guard. And against some of these other, I guess certainly against like a Terrence Crawford, this is a recipe for complete disaster. He kind of has to retool his work a little bit. Him marching forward and trying to use his bigger, stronger frame is only going to work until you reach the top 10. The top 10 at 147 are not really gonna get phased by this. Very stationary, very immobile Staniosis. Strong kid, decent hand speed, decent power, but the foot speed, boy, I'm telling you guys, Collazo looked faster at 40. This was a little bit like Klitschko versus Joshua, where Klitschko, even at 41, 42, looked like he had more pep in the step than Joshua. Now, obviously, I'm not saying Joshua is a slow fighter, just that Klitschko, even at 41, looked faster. And obviously, Joshua, since the loss to Ruiz, has lost a little bit of weight and has picked up some speed, which I think is for the better, because Joshua was a little bit like a pylon. I thought that if Joshua fought Wilder prior to his defeat to Ruiz, I think it would be a recipe for disaster, as Wilder would eventually catch a station Joshua, and knock him out. So again, like, you had Collazo at many points in the first 4 rounds, really showing his caliber even at 40 years old. And let's talk about his career a little bit, because like I mentioned in the previous fight, he's really fought like the gambit of fighters. I guess I don't want to say this is his most known fight, but the most known fight is his defeat, unanimous decision loss to Ricky Hatton, in which many people thought that Collazo could have won. Yeah, he did. That was in 2006, guys, just to give you an example of how long Collazo's been around. That was in 2006. And at that time, at that Ricky Hatton, granted it was 147, 140-pound Ricky Hatton, but a victory over Ricky Hatton in 2006, it means a good deal. Ricky Hatton at one point was quite a powerful fighter. You have to remember, he did beat Kostetsu. And that was at the time like a very serious win. Anyone who has anyone who has a victory over Tsu is a very, very, very serious fighter. You Tsu, what he did to Zab Judah in the kind of run he had on 140, let me tell you, they were not lining up to fight Tsu at all. So Ricky Hatton was a 2006 Ricky Hatton was a very legitimate fighter. The Collazo, in some people's eyes, he definitely won that fight. I thought it was extremely competitive. I haven't rewatched it. I don't remember. I thought Ricky Hatton edged it. He did have the knockdown as well in the first. But whatever it was, I remember the fight being very close. He then, of course, as I mentioned, fight Shane Mosley, Andre Berto. And to me, it kind of, Luis Collazo, even in 2014, seemed like he was more or less done, but he gets that surprise. I'll say underdog stoppage of Victor Ortiz. I think this is where he broke Victor Ortiz's jaw, if I'm not mistaken. And And that was kind of for me like his last hurrah, because afterwards he goes on to lose a very wide unanimous decision against Amir Khan, gets stopped by Keith Thurman, and and that more or less is kind of all she wrote for him. So he had a very, very, very good career, I feel. For what he brought to the ring, he was crafty. He didn't have much power, but he was crafty. He always gave it his all. So Luis Collazo, I felt, was a good fighter, a solid kind of B-level guy who can at some nights, as you saw with Ricky Hatton, at some nights really kind of trouble a world level fighter. If everything goes right, he can really put it together. So when you saw him against Staniosis, I was kind of also scouting Staniosis. And I think he did for us a favor. He let us know what we should expect from Staniosis. And as I feel, Staniosis doesn't have the it. It's not, I don't know what it is. It also could be that, 147, I'm always imagining Crawford up there, Spence, potentially, Josh Taylor moving up. And if someone says, do you see Staniosis beating these fighters as flat-footed as he looked? Oof, guys, I don't think so. I can easily imagine a Josh Taylor moving up and just outboxing him for 12 rounds. I don't think Staniosis would get stopped. He's a young kid, very strong in the body, you can tell, but the foot speed, man, it's just, that's, you have to, Lomachenko has not a lot of power, but that foot speed, the difference between Lomachenko and Gary Russell in their third fight was foot speed and foot movement, of course, obviously. But while you can say Gary Russell was a little bit quicker in the hands, the foot speed difference made Lomachenko come in and out, in and out, in and out. Gary Russell's hand speed didn't matter when Lomachenko can change positioning so quickly and really pick Gary Russell apart. And you have a little bit of that issue with Staniosis. Even in 4 rounds, you saw Collazo being able to move around at 40 years old quite well and cause Staniosis some problems. Staniosis had redness and welts, on his face in 4 rounds. I mean, you take a harder puncher, you take a Spence, and I'm not saying, obviously, I'm sure even Staniosis' handlers will tell you they don't want a Spence next. But nonetheless, guys. So that's what I kind of think about Staniosis a little bit. Obviously, it's Luis Collazo saying he's done for sure. He's moving on with retirement, and I don't know. I think he kind of had a good career. So that's that. I wanted to kind of take this moment and say, like, a few podcasts back, I didn't tear into, but I mocked Plant a little bit because I thought he was the one that turned down the fight. And as it turns out, it wasn't Plant. It was Canelo who, after not getting enough, was the one who turned down the fight. And this kind of changes things a little bit because I feel I was being a little bit unfair towards Plant. I was being dismissive. And sometimes it happens. You just kind of want the fight to happen. Or in my mind, maybe I thought that, like, oh, Canelo's going to win anyway. So blah, 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 blah. But, as it turns out that Canelo is, kind of cost himself the September date a little bit. And if the September date was as important as Canelo makes it out to be, I think whatever the slight concessions that Plant may have wanted, I think they should have been given to him, given that this is for the undisputed belts. This is in September when Canelo fights. So now we're kind of stuck with no September date for Canelo at all. Golovkin's not stepping in. Bivol not stepping in. Looks like it's getting pushed back to November, which sucks because there was a chance we could have gotten Canelo to fight another time this year, but it's not going to happen. We're only going to get one more shot. There was an idea that Canelo may have fought 4 times. And that would have been crazy because he did wind up fighting Yildirim and Billy Joe Saunders this year. The idea was he fights in September and maybe December, and you get like a 4-year Canelo. Not happening. You're now gonna get I don't know who's coming up first, or who they have for November, but I'm sure they'll get someone who's pretty legit. And that's kind of that. What else do we have? Obviously, Amir Khan's still angling for the Kell Brook fight in the UK. You can tell Amir Khan is wrapping his career up. I think he just wants one more battle. It's obvious. And the Brook rivalry has been going on for quite some time, at least verbally. And this is I think, going to be quite a good way for both fighters to end their career end the rivalry and, call it quits right here, because I think both fighters are at the end of their career, the twilight of their career, let's say. Let's talk about the Olympics for a quick second. Now, you did wind up having the USA not medaling, having no gold medals in this Olympics, and that's unfortunate, but they did super well. All things considered, you wound up having 3 silver medals and 1 bronze for 4 medals. Not bad. Cuba, of course, takes the lion's share, 4 golds, 1 bronze, 5 total medals. The Great Britain did well with 2 golds, 2 silver, 2 bronze with 6 total medals. The Russians with 1 gold, 1 silver, 4 bronze. Also a decent showing. A lot of course, the Caucasus people. You had a lot of ethnic Dagestanis and I think Chechens and stuff who usually make up the Russian fighting ranks. Brazil catches a gold medal. So all things considered, a pretty good showing for the United States. Pretty good showing for the United States. I think, Olympic boxing has significantly improved with the removal of the headgear. We had the who was KO'd, the Ukrainian kid that was KO'd. Some of these KOs you're getting more of. It's better resembling pro boxing, and again, it's better for the pro game. Because even back when Lomachenko's time, especially back in Lomachenko's time, you had a lot of these pity pat amateurs who were just trying to touch you to score a point. That doesn't translate to the pro game well at all. And you wind up having a lot of gold medalists getting knocked out left and right and don't know how to sit on their punches. Well, now things are changing. So I think within a decade or so, you're going to have some Olympians coming out, some gold medalists who are really indicative of world champions, and so on and so forth. Well, guys, that's going to do it for me. This is going to, I'm a little bit busy this week, so I think maybe a Thursday won't happen. Maybe the next Stop the Fight is going to be on a Friday, but stay tuned, and thank you for listening. It's over.
I'ma go home and break my wife's hip.
Don't brag about taking my side piece. Don't brag about taking my side piece, though.
I broke my back. Back is broken. Spinal.
He's strong, man. Good boy. Just.